So when we talk about, the graph, this parabola right here, this D, notice a couple things. It's a parabola because it's x squared, right? It's been moved down 12 units, I guess. And notice this here, the domain is stated. So we're talking about x just greater than or equal to 0, right? So if we had a parabola that was like this, and let's say this goes down 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Let's say this is negative 12. Then the parabola would look something like this, right? Just a rough sketch. It would go down here, and then it would come back up to here, and so on. All right? That's just a rough sketch, okay? What we're talking about here is that x is greater than or equal to 0. So we're just talking about this sort of arm. We're just talking about half of the parabola. Okay? Now, why would we be doing that? Because the inverse of this part of the parabola is a what? It's a... Okay, let's go back. Whoops. Where that took us. Okay. Where were we here? I guess my cursor was at the beginning. Is it? Oh. There we go. We're back. Okay, so if we have this part of the parabola here, the inverse, guys, of this, remember we talked about inverses the other day? The inverse is going to be rotated around the what? The y equals x. So it's going to be flipped sideways, right? So this is not going to be a function. The inverse is not a function. How do we know that? Horizontal line test. Thank you. So if we have the horizontal line test, which, that wasn't very horizontal, but if we take any horizontal line and it crosses the graph twice, we know that the inverse then is the graph's going to cross the vertical line twice. No good. So the horizontal line test says that the inverse is not a function. That's what it says. It says the inverse is not. What were we going to say?
But isn't it greater than 0? So
right. So that's why. Yeah, that's right. We're coming back to that. So that in order to make the inverse and this is what I asked before, the inverse is a what when we do this? The inverse is a function now. Okay? Because x and y are going to be switched. This is 0, negative 12. Let's go negative 12, 0. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Right? This point that's on the graph right here, let's say it's this one. Again, that's going to be an in what point? It's not going to change. So it's an invariant point. Very good. So just again, rough sketch. I'm not doing this exactly, but a rough sketch is going to look something like that. That's going to be the graph of the inverse. Okay? And of course, if we had both arms of the parabola, something like this, then I would have this as the inverse. Right? Which the inverse is definitely not a function. So that's why they state the domain like that. Okay? Any questions? And the width of this parabola it's not exactly accurate, just sketching. So let's try and find which one would it be. What would this be? Which one down here would represent this graph? It may not be particularly obvious. Okay, it may not be obvious. So what we should do then is we should literally switch x and y and try and solve for y. See what we get. Okay. So let's do this. X equals y squared minus 12. And if we solve for y there, we would then have x plus 12 on this side equals y squared. If I took the square root of both sides, I would have y equals plus or minus the square root of x plus 12. And if we're only talking about the positive in x here, then we can get rid of this negative part here. And so that would be the inverse. Do you see that anywhere? Right there. Okay? All right? So, there you go. There's a note on that. Now, did anybody else have any problems with 6 that you wanted to ask me about? Anything specific?
It'll be an outdoor recess. Please dress warm.
Okay.
It'll be an
Outdoor recess.
Please dress warm.
So you guys know. It's poor little elementary kids. It's just warm enough not to freeze any limbs off, so you have to go outside. Good. All right. All right. Questions then? No? All right.